This is the best way you could utilize your move-in specials for your apartment. A lot of my clients have asked me what their move-in cost is and how to utilize the specials if the property was to give their move-in specials upon the move-in date. The most difficult thing about this is really understanding your daily rent rate and also the amount of days left over for your month that you're starting your lease. And that's pretty much it. Granted, we are gonna keep it as simple as possible with this example, and we're not gonna have any add-ons, but I'm gonna bring you back to the whiteboard and we could see exactly how the calculations are going on.
We're gonna run down this real quick on terms of the basic information. So the market rent, I'm gonna use a real life example because one of my clients legitimately asked this a couple of an hour ago, and so I'm just going to write all the information here and I'll explain as we go. So the market rent is 8 weeks, the market rent is $1,364 and it's a 1-bedroom, and the special is going for 8 weeks free, and the lease term has to be a 14-month lease. And this property allows you to self-prorate. It's in the La Cantera area. We found the special, she applied, and she asked me what are the move-in costs. So the move-in costs associated with this is really about 4 or 5 different things. So move-in cost equals to rent plus residential fees. And so this could be like amenity fees, etc., trash, this, and then add-ons. So like garages, storage units, and then any deposits, secured deposits, pet deposits, whatever it is. So those are really the 4 different factors that come into play in terms of having a large move-in cost. But also this rent is dependent on the date you move in. So it's the prorated rent depending on the move-in date. And someone's calling me. So in order to find the prorated rent, it depends on the move-in date, and let's just say the lease start date is on April 5th. Okay, there are 30 days in April, so really we're getting charged if we move in on April 5th is about 26 days, because April 5th is considered as a day. We don't charge, starting on the 6th. So April 5th is considered a day, and so there's 26 days of rent that needs to be paid. And this 26 days is basically the remaining amount of days that's left in April, and so that's the prorated rent. And what we need to find is really the daily rate of the rent if we were to calculate the move-in cost. So how I find out is that the market rent's $1,364 times 12, because there's 12 months per year on it, right? 12 months per year. And I will calculate this right now. So it's around $16,368. So that is the annual amount of rent that we pay to the apartment complex. But what we want to do, this is going to be a daily rate. So how many days are in a year? You divide this by 365 days. And you will get about $14.84, okay? So that's like really an estimate of the daily rate for the rent for this apartment complex. Now, in order to calculate that, what is this simple algebra, right? We just multiply the $44.84 times 26 days, because there's 26 days of rent we're trying to pay for. And this comes out to $1165.94. So that is the prorated rent for April 5th move-in. All right, so that's the variable that we're going to solve here. And the next variable is really the same concept. I'm not going to go over the same thing again, but essentially finding the total amount of residential fees and doing the same calculation right here, you just replace, you know, the variable number. So instead of 1364, you replace the total amount onto this, and you know, you plug and play your formula. All this, you don't need to know how to do this, but is knowing and understanding how the move-in costs is associated with your move-in is super important, because you don't want to get screwed over, right? Like, how about if someone's messing up your move-in things, move-in costs and everything like that. So that's how essentially is everything is played out. And this is also super important, mainly because sometimes the apartment complex, let's say they want to give, the special is given upon move-in. Okay, so now there's another variable. This is another variable that's gonna screw all this over, because a lot of these apartment complexes are gonna tell you, oh, it's $0 to move in or something like that, all right? In actuality, there's a better way to utilize this special. It's really dependent on a lot of people and dependent on your financial situation. But what I recommend for 90% of my clients and 90% of the people who aren't really hurting that bad in terms of finances is to pay the freaking rent, to pay all this moving costs up front, and don't worry about your specials, because it's a lot easier to calculate their prorated or net effective rent if you decide to spread the special throughout the lease term, which is always what I recommend my clients to do if you have the flexibility to do so. So my recommendation is to pay all of your move-in cost right over there. And in order for you to have an even amount of monthly payments throughout the rest of your lease term. So if that was to happen, right, we just calculate all this stuff, all these variables, and sometimes most of my clients, this is like $0 anyways, and this is like deposits, like you're talking about, you know, your pet deposits and things like that, and also security deposit. Pay all that, because the move-in costs, regardless of how much special you get, and if you were to follow my recommendations, this move-in cost is always going to be higher. It's always going to be a lot higher than the rest of the months in the lease, because we're not utilizing any move-in specials. But let's just say we follow our recommendations, right? And there is actually, you're paying, you know, about like $1,500, just give or take. The thing that we want to calculate is really, there's roughly about like 13 months left in our lease, because we are signing a 14-month lease here. And what we could do to really calculate this is, if you want to get the most accurate possible, you know, we're still talking in estimates, but if we were to utilize this and you go with my recommendation, it's 1364 times 2. So this is going to be, this amount is about 27, 28 of rent credit that we get, all right? This is the rent credit that we get, and we could utilize this equally throughout the lease term. Because we're starting the lease term on April 5th, we're almost like 1 month in. Like, we legitimately almost pay a full month of rent. So what I am trying to guesstimate is really, this 14-month lease is not really a 14-month lease anymore. It's really about a 13 months lease plus 5 days or something like that, right? So what I tell my clients to do is, you know what? Let's just divide this amount, 27.28 of the rent credit, divided by 13 instead of 14. If we do this, this is the most accurate, and for basically the whole 13-month lease, or 99% of your lease term, which is 13 months, becomes about $209.85 of rent credit used per month. This is important because we're trying to utilize this amount to find out the net effective rent for 99% of the lease term, which is the 13-month lease. The rent amount, which is, I'm going to do it on the side right here, 1364 minus 209.85, and this will calculate the net effective rent.
Now this is legitimately the cost for just the rent itself, because you still have to consider, you know, your water, trash, pest, all those residential fees or adding add-ons, but we're talking explicitly just the rent amount. Just the rent amount from $13.64 to $11.54. We legitimately reduced this rent amount by more than $200 per month. So this amount is the out-of-pocket cost that's coming out of your freaking account every single month instead of $13.64, because we took the liberty of paying the rent upfront upon your move-in date, and then we're calculating the 99% of the lease term, which is 13 months, and you will get your out-of-pocket costs $200, more than $200 less than the market rent of what they're advertising on the website. And this is not a trick, it's literally simple algebra, it's simple math. If you could do second grade algebra, third grade algebra, or third grade math, I should say, this is legitimately what you're paying out of pocket every single month. And of course, like I said, caveat, you always have to add on your add-ons, like garages, things like that, plus residential fees, plus any like pet rent and anything else like that, any miscellaneous stuff. But 90% of your lease, 99% of your lease is going to be this $11.54. So that's the magic of utilizing this recommendation of paying your move-in cost upfront and in full, and not utilizing your move-in specials, and then distribute it equally as best as you can throughout 99% of your lease, which is in this example 13 months lease. Your out-of-pocket cost becomes $200 and more less than what you would normally pay if you just didn't do anything. I hope you guys enjoy this technical explanation, even though it is legitimately any person could do this. If you graduated grammar school, elementary school, you can figure this out. It is not hard. It's just understanding the concepts of the rents and how the specials are given and etc. But if you like this content, please give this video a thumbs up, like whatever you see it as, and would love to hear from you. If you need help finding an apartment or buying a new build home, would love to help and walk through. As you can see, I'm very technical, very thorough, and hopefully I bring some clarity to you in terms of these fees or even in the home purchasing process, because a lot of these information it's not really given upfront, right? So I would love to help any of my clients that are interested in finding and utilizing me as an agent. I would love to help out. Contact me. Phone number is basically all over my social media, 210-975-9800, or fill out the link in my bio in my forums, and you could fill out the consultation form. We'll contact you within 1 to 3 business days, and I really hope to hear from you soon.